Fibers, welcome to today's session again. So children, continuing with their previous topics about the sexual reproduction in flowering plants, where another topic of that particular chapter, which is the structure of the stamen, and we're going to learn about how the microspore is being basically created, which is called as microsporogenesis. Yes, in the previous lecture we have discussed about what are flowering plants, what are basically male reproductive part, female reproductive part. We have talked about that. We have talked about the features of a flowering plant, and yet the most evident features of the flowering plant is of course the stamen and of course the carpel. Okay, so children, today we are going to discuss about the whole structure. We are going to see exactly what are the kind of internal structure does the stamen has, and we are going to also see how the microspore formation, how the microsporogenesis, of course, since it is a reproductive part, of course, how the reductional division is taking place and how these microspores are protective and covered in several layers. Okay, so children, as you know that before coming to the session, you have to register for the session. You have to come to Imbibe app, log in to your email ID or your phone number. Just register yourself for the class so that you never miss an update regarding the session, and you will always have this pre-class assignment before coming to the session. After you get over with the session, you have post-class assignment. So pre and post-class assignments are for your benefit only. So when you attempt the pre-class assignment, is going to help you with whatever is going to talk in the class, or it's going to prepare you for what is going to be discussed, give you a better clarity. And after the session gets over, you have to attempt the post-class assignment. Of course, there are several questions related to it, that what is being taught in the, whatever is being taught in the class. Okay, so have a better conceptual clarity. Okay, before we start, let me introduce you to myself. I am Anam Khan. I'll be your botany expert for the session 2023 and 2024, and we're going to discuss all the amazing topics related to plant. I know, of course, in the 12th standard, they are not much of a taxonomy. Of course, you have already studied in the 11th standard. Here, was it totally related to plants, whatever, we're going to discuss that. Okay, so following our today's session, let's start this structure and stamen. The structure of stamen and the microsporogenesis. So, talking about the topics which will be discussed in future, of course, the several topics, and the topics which has been already discussed in the previous lectures are there. Of course, we have already discussed about the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. We have discussed about the reproductive organ in the plants, and today we are going to start with the third topic, which is the stamen, the structure of the stamen, microsporangium, and of course, in the next chapter, we are going to discuss about the structure of the pollen grain also. Okay. Yes, after that, we are going to discuss about the female reproductive part, which is the pistil, megasporangium, and we are going to discuss about the megasporogenesis also. Then the pollination, then the outbreeding devices, then the most main feature of the angiosperm, which is the double fertilization. We are going to discuss about the post-fertilization events and so on, seed and fruit formation, polyembryony and apomixis. All these things, all these topics will be discussed in the respective lectures. Okay, so children, today we are going to cover about the concepts which is to be covered today would be totally related to the male reproductive part, which is the stamen. We are going to discuss about what is the filament of the stamen, anther, microsporangium, tapetum, middle layer, endothecium, and microsporogenesis. In short, we are going to discuss, we are going to dissect the whole male reproductive part, and we are going to see exactly what lies within it. Okay, before you know, children, what is the ritual? We are going to basically recap. We are going to see what we have studied in the previous lecture. We have studied about that how flowers of the angiosperm family plays a crucial role. Okay, in basically the whole life cycle is totally dependent on the flowering plants, their flower parts, or the reproductive parts. There is a male reproductive part which is called androecium, and there is a female reproductive part which is called gynoecium. Yet there are accessory elements also, which is calyx, corolla, you know, the bracts, which are also present, which is also a part of the flower, which is also assisting in the reproduction, yet they are not directly involved in the process of reproduction. Okay, so the corolla, which is of course the single unit, is called petals. You must have gone through the morphology of flowering plants in the 11th standard in NCERT. Okay, You know that the corolla is what? It is a collection of petals, it's a group of petals, single unit petal. You know what is calyx? Calyx is a group of sepal. A single unit is called sepals. Okay, so petals are going to help in the pollination because they are colored, they are attractive. Even you are also attracted towards the flower because it's of beautiful colors, nice smell, etc. And yes, there is an androecium, which is a male reproductive part, which is composed of stamen, and each stamen has a anther and a filament. Okay, then there is a megasporangium, of course, which is the gynoecium, which is the female reproductive part, which has the single unit is called the carpel, and which is further divided into stigma, style, and of course the ovary. These are the parts of the gynoecium. So children, this is what we have studied in the previous lecture, giving you a brief idea what we have studied previously. So that's why we have this recap. Okay, moving on, starting our further session, or starting with the today's session is that we're going to talk about there are a lot of pollen. You know children, what is there? There is a lot of pollen in the air. Sometimes you feel that people start sneezing the moment they step out of the home. Okay, because the people are very much prone to this pollen allergy. Okay, they develop some kind of sneezing issues, they sometimes develop itching and everything. That is because of this pollen present in the air. There is always pollen dispersed in the air, and sometimes people are allergic to this pollen and also called as pollen allergy. Okay, so what is this pollen? We are going to discuss in detail, but let me know what exactly is present, where this pollen is actually present inside the male reproductive part. Talking about this, it resides, there is a stamen. Of course, you know the stamen is developed, the stamen is further divided into anther and the filament, but the stamen is the androecium, the male reproductive part. The male reproductive part which is further divided into a filament and anther. Okay, and this filament can vary in various sizes, and of course it is present, it is totally attached to the side of the anther. So the stamen is the male reproductive part of the plant, and it consists of a filament and an anther, which variable in the size and of course in the length also. As you can see also, this is how the depiction of the stamen is. This is your anther, and this long filament like structure is called a filament only. Long tube like structure is called filament. Okay, so let's see how we're going to discuss individually about the anther and of course the filament. Talking about more in detail about the filament. What is the filament? What are the characteristics of the filament is? So talking about the characteristics of a filament, children, the filament is a long stick like structure that hold the anther. As you can see, it is attached at the back of the anther, it is holding it tall, the filament. That is why sometimes they are very tall. That is why they also disperse the pollen grains in the air. Okay, so the filament is a long stick like structure that is holding the anther. Okay, the filament is proximal end is joined to the thalamus or a flower petal. So the proximal end of the filament is sometimes joined to the thalamus part of the plant. What is the function of the filament? The whole function of the filament is not taking part in the reproduction, but yet they are helping in the reproduction process by supporting and holding and exposing the anther. Because if the anther will not be exposed, there will be no dispersion of the pollen grains, there will be no insect will come in contact with the pollen grain, and there will be no pollination. Of course, we are going to discuss about the pollination in the coming session. Of course, you know that the pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma, and this is only possible because the filament holds the anther at a very good length so that it can disperse in the air. Okay, so the various methods through which the anther is dispersing the pollen grain, because the filament is holding high the anther through the wind, through the water. The pollinators, of course the insects, they all pollinate the same or the other flowers. So sometimes the pollinators, which could be wind, which could be water, which could be particular pollinators also, ants, bees, etc., they can basically help in the pollination with the same plant also, same flower also, and they can also help in the pollination of the different flowers also. So this is what the filament does. It is not directly participating in the process of sexual reproduction, but it is totally supporting the male reproductive part, which is of course the anther, in helping in the dispersion of the pollen grain, which is the male gamete. Clear? So this is all about the filament. Talking about the other part of the stamen, which is the anther. You know, the filament is clear, it's easy. This has nothing very conceptual over it. But yes, we have the other part, which is the anther. What is the anther? Children, please listen very carefully. This is very important. Anuj, the next session of the 11th standard will be, I think, on Saturday. Saturday we have a practice session for the fungi and the viruses, and then on Monday onwards again we're going to start with the characteristics of the algae. Okay, there will be next session on Monday. The practice section will be on Friday. So do not miss that class, because we're going to practice the questions related to the fungi and viruses, because we have already discussed a lot of things related to that. Okay, moving forward, talking about the anther, children, what does the anther do? Anther, which is supported by the filament. The anther is supported by the filament. Of course, you know the filament holds the anther high. Okay, what it is a bilobed structure. There are two lobes. This is a one lobe, this is two lobes. Okay, these are a bilobed structure. Okay, and having 4 microsporangia. What is microsporangia? 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 microsporangia present in the anther, which eventually will lead to the formation of the microspore. Okay, so anther is a bilobed structure which has 4 microsporangia. And children, this microsporangia, which is 2 in each lobe, are placed at the 4-sided corners of the anther, and this microsporangia develops further and becomes a pollen sacs. Of course, this in the vegetative stage further matures to form a pollen sac, because eventually what we need pollens, we need microspores, we need male gamete for the fertilization. So this microsporangia further developed into a pollen sac, which will give rise to pollen grains. Okay, because we're going to learn about the microsporogenesis. So please wait. Of course, today only, in this session only, I'm going to explain you what is the microsporogenesis. Clear? So anther is a bilobe structure. Each lobe has 2 sporangia, and in total there are 4 microsporangias. Okay, after the development, these microsporangia convert into a pollen sac. Is it clear? I just hope this is clear. Children, these are the just basics of this particular chapter. Okay, everything, every conceptual things is waiting actually. The most conceptual part, which is of course the pollination, the post-fertilization events, the formation of the seed, apomixis, and of course lot of things are waiting. So these are just starting. Okay, so do not say this is an easy chapter. Yes, this is an easy chapter. Your 12th botany is easy with comparison to 11th, which has a lot to study about the plant, morphos, the anat, the physiology. A lot of things has to be studied in that, but in the 12th standard, there's a lot of interesting chapters related to botany, be it sexual reproduction in flowering plants, be it your genetics, your molecular genetics, your chromosomal inheritance, a lot of things interesting in the 12th standard. Okay, so children, please do always attend the class, because we are taking classes on the Imbibe app in the sequential manner. Okay, each and every teacher with chemistry, physics, they are taking classes in a sequential manner. So please join us on the Imbibe app. Okay, so talking about the anther, the children, these are the few characteristics of the anther. So we have discussed 2 parts of the stamen. One is the filament, the other is the anther. Let's see what we have next. Talking more about the stamen, the next thing we have is of the flower. So what do you think, which part of this? So what telling you then is interesting part. If you join us on the Imbibe app, you can just basically attempt this question on your screen. You can just use the cursor, you can use your keyboard, you can use your touchpad. So basically answer this question. I know this is not possible over here, but you can always do it on the Imbibe app. So you have to locate which part of this flower is the anther. Which part of this flower is the anther? Very easy. I don't know, something to be answered only. You know this flower. This is the stamen of the flower. Okay, bearing the anther and the filament. Okay, which is the male reproductive part. Now, please, this is the most important points. There is the most important concept of this particular session, which is the microsporangium and microsporogenesis are the two most important concepts we taught right now. Please listen carefully. Talking about the microsporangium, this is the same particular diagram you have in your NCERT, and that is why we have kept it. So children, talking more about the microsporangium, you know the whole microsporangium, which eventually become pollen sac, is having 4 layers. It has 4 wall layers and each layer has its own importance. Talking about the 4 layers, one is the epidermis, one is the endothecium, the other is the middle layer, and the last is the tapetum. Please remember, the question might always come up. If you ever wanted to give a NEET examination in future, you will, of course, I know after your board examination is done, if you attempt your NEET examination, the sexual reproduction in flowering plants is always the favorite. The question might comes up, which are the 4 layers of the microsporangium. So these are the 4 layers of the microsporangium, which is the epidermis, endothecium, there is a middle layer, and finally there is a tapetum. Okay, so children, the functions are also very important. Talking about the outer 3 layers, what they help? They help in the protection, and they also help in the dehiscence of anther. They also help in the dehiscence, means they are also helping in the protecting the whole pollen sacs, the microsporangia, and eventually when the microspore is maturing, it also helps in the dehiscence. Okay, so children, the other 3 layers, the outer 3 layers are totally for the protection and the dehiscence. But the most important layer, is absolutely the most important, is the innermost layer, which is the tapetum. The question always comes from them, that what is the function of tapetum? So major function of the tapetum is to provide nourishment. It is binucleated with the dense cytoplasm and nourishes to the pollen grain. It provides nourishment to the pollen grain. It is binucleated. It is having a dense cytoplasm and it is providing the nourishment to the pollen grains. Yes, please remember the 4 layers and their function, children. So the 4 layers, out of 3 layers are totally for the dehiscence and for the protection, and yet there is a innermost layer, which is the tapetum, which is binucleated, which is having a dense cytoplasm. It is helping in the nourishment of the microspore or the pollen grain. Of course, it needs nourishment. This is the male gamete which has to be nourished. Okay. So children, the nourishment is being provided by the innermost layer, which is the tapetum. As you can see in the picture, children, the outermost layer, you can see this is the epidermis. After the epidermis, there is endothecium and there are middle layers, and finally there are tapetum and there are microspore mother cells. Microspore mother cells which will undergo the process of division and will lead to the formation of microspores. Okay. So children, these are the 4 layers of the microsporangia. I hope this is absolutely clear, talking about the microsporangium. Okay. Is this clear, children? Is this clear? Okay. So moving forward with the more explanation of the microsporangium. Next we have the sporogenous tissues. What are sporogenous tissues? Just a second. Waiting for the image. What is the sporogenous tissue? So group of homogeneous cells located in the center of microsporangium. Giving you again a brief about this structure. This part as you can see, this is a connective point and this is your sporogenous tissues. So what is a sporogenous tissue, children? Your sporogenous tissue is a homogeneous cells located in the center of the sporangium. This is the sporogenous tissue, okay, which is present in the microsporangium. They are the homogeneous cells, same type of cells located at the center of the microsporangium. Okay, clear? This is also a part of the microsporangium. Moving forward, talking more about the microsporangium, next we have a question. So, these type of question you will be able to attempt on the Imbibe app. So, while you take classes through the Imbibe app, it will be completely effortless for you to attempt such questions. Of course, identify the correct function of the middle layer in a microsporangium and connect to the main bubble. So, what do you think is the function of the microsporangium? What do you think is the function of microsporangium? Very easy, I guess. Children, the 3 layers of the microsporangium are totally to provide the protection and help in the dehiscence. But the only tapetum layer, which is the innermost layer, it is helping in the nourishment of the microspore. Clear? Very easy. I think this is just now we have discussed everything related to this. Next. Whoa, this is the most important topic. Children, please listen this carefully. Talking about the microsporogenesis. What is microsporogenesis? What is microsporogenesis? Microsporogenesis is the formation of microspore from the PMC, which is the pollen mother cells, through the meiosis. And you know meiosis is a reductional division. Okay, PMC is the pollen mother cell. Microsporogenesis is the formation of microspore from a pollen mother cells through the process of meiosis. What is the process of microsporogenesis? Listen very carefully. Talking about the process of microsporogenesis is that the cells of sporogenous tissues are called microsporocyte. The cells, the sporogenous tissue, the homogeneous tissues, the cells which are present in these sporogenous tissues are called microsporocyte. Okay. The cells of the sporogenous tissue, is of course the homogeneous cells, having the homogeneous cells are called microsporocyte. After this, each microsporocyte passes through the mitosis and divides to create a number of diploid microspore mother cells or pollen mother cells. Why mitosis? Because the mother needs to maintain the ploidy of the mitosis is basically taking place, and you know the mitosis is an equational division. Now the ploidy is being maintained, but we wanted the pollen grain to be of half of the chromosome because it is going to be a reductional division. So the mother cell is going to be always diploid. The mother cell is always going to be a diploid, while the male gamete, it is going to be haploid. Okay. So children, the microspore mother cell or the pollen mother cell or the microsporocyte will undergo the mitosis process and will form a pollen mother cell, a microspore mother cell through the mitosis process. Okay. So now pollen mother cells divide by meiosis. The pollen mother cells divide by meiosis to produce 4 haploid microspore. Simply, after the the meiosis division, the 4 daughter cells are being formed. 4 haploid daughter cells are formed. If you remember, you remember meiosis first and meiosis second. So the meiosis first is the reductional division in which half of the chromosome number will reduce. Okay. Abhishek. Okay. Half of the chromosome number will be reduced. So children, talking about the pollen mother cell, it will basically undergo the process of meiosis, which is a reductional division, and develop 4 microspore. It will develop 4 microspore. 2 nuclei are produced by first reductional division, with a tetrad of microspore is produced by the second division. It means the 2 nuclei are produced by first reductional division. The first reductional division will create a 2 nuclei, the binucleated structure, which is of course formed by the first reductional division. After the second reductional division, there would be a tetrad of microspore will be formed. The microspore separate from the another and eventually develop into a pollen grain. After the pollen mother cell or microspore mother cell undergo the process of meiosis, develop the microspores, which is called turn into the separate. The microscope will eventually separate and will eventually give rise to the pollen grains. So children, listen carefully. The whole thing is about that the PMC, which is the pollen mother cell, which will be undergoing the process of mitosis. Okay, it is going under the process of mitosis, but after that pollen mother cell or the microspore mother cell will undergo the process of reductional division and will be producing 4 microspore. Will be producing what? 4 haploid microspore. Microspore will be developed by the reductional division from the microspore mother cell. After this microspore has been developed, 2 nuclei are produced by first reductional division and the tetrad nuclei has been produced of the second reductional division, and eventually these microspore which were together, they separate and eventually will create into a new pollen grains or individual pollen grains. This is about the microsporogenesis. What is microsporogenesis? Is the formation of the pollen grains from the pollen mother cells through the process of reductional division. The microsporogenesis is the formation of microspores from the pollen mother cells through the process of meiosis. Clear? Is it clear? We have discussed about the parts of the stamen, anther and filament. We have discussed about the microsporangiums. We have discussed about the layers of microsporangium. I have told you about the sporogenous tissue, and yet we have also discussed about the microsporogenesis. Okay, the detailed structure of pollen grain also will be discussed. Wait for that session. But today, just keeping it low, just the starting of the stamen, explanation of the microspore, of course, the stamen. Okay, moving forward, talking about more, we have a question for you. The angiosperms are also known as flowering plants. Yes or no? The angiosperms are also known as flowering plants. Yes or no? The angiosperms are also known as flowering plants. Yes or no? Very simple, children. Yes, the angiosperms are of course known as the flowering family, flowering plants. Yes, the first flowering plant is the angiosperm. The flowers are modified shoot, root or fruit. What do you think flowers are? The flowers are modified shoot, root or fruit. Flowers are modified shoot, root or fruit. Flowers are modified shoot, root or fruit. Yes, absolutely true. The flowers are modified shoot. This is so common. This is so easy, you know. Yes. Next question. Anther is generally composed of how many sporangia? Very easy question. Just now we have discussed everything. How anther is composed of? Anther is generally composed of what? 1 sporangium, 2 sporangia, 3 sporangia, 4 sporangia. Yes, this is so easy. Just now we explained the anther is a bilobe structure, consists of 4 sporangia. This is so easy. Just now we have discussed there are 4 sporangia. Okay, 2 in each lobe. Yes or no? Next, microsporophyll of angiosperm is also known as what? Microsporophyll is also known as gynoecium, anther, filament or stamen. Simple, this is so simple. Just now we have discussed about it, children. Yes or no? Just now we discussed the microsporophyll is what? Gynoecium, anther, filament, stamen or what? Children, yes, the microsporophyll is the stamen, not anther, not filament, not gynoecium. We are talking about the microsporophyll, which is the stamen, and stamen is further divided into filament and the anther. Okay, this is what we have discussed all throughout this session. Yes, moving on, children, talking more about the other. Yes, this is so important because I told you this is absolutely important from the examination point of view also, and this question generally comes up that the endothecium, middle layer and tapetum is anther are derived from what? Sporogenous tissue, primary parietal cells, both, none of the above. Yes, at least try to give answer, children. At least try to give answer. The endothecium, middle layer, tapetum is another derived from the primary parietal cells. They are derived from the primary parietal cells. Next, the microspore mother cell produces microspore through which division? Oh, this is so easy. This is something which is on the tips only. Which division is taking place in the microspore? Which division is taking place in the microspore? Which division is taking place in the microspore? Very simple, children. Yes, through the meiosis, because that is the reductional division which is taking place in the microspore mother cells, creating the pollen grains which are haploid. Very easy. Yes. So children, this brings to our end of this session. You know what we have studied. We have studied about the stamen, the structure of the stamen. You know that the stamen is divided into 2 parts, which is the anther and the filament. The filament is just stalk-like structure giving support to the anther attached to the base of the anther, and children, the anther is further divided into 2 lobes having 4 sporangia, and of course there are several layers of that sporangia which are particularly protecting and giving nourishment to the pollen grain. So children, those 4 layers are of course the epidermis, endothecium, middle layer and tapetum. The outer 3 walls are helping with the protection, while the innermost layer, which is the tapetum, is helping with the nourishment. Okay, and children, the group of homogeneous tissues which are there in the center is called what? It is called the sporogenous tissue. Okay, the process of formation of microspore from the pollen grain of the sporogenous tissue is called, of the pollen grain from the pollen mother cell of microspore mother cell is called microsporogenesis. Okay, and as the anther matures, dehydrate the microscope, dissociate from that and develops into a pollen grain. After the microspore is basically formed, they dissociate with each other and eventually matures into form of a pollen grain. Okay, so children, this is all about today's session. But before you go, you know children what we have? We have that what is the structure of pollen grain. We are going to discuss in detail about the structure of the microspore We're going to discuss the structure of the pollen grain in detail. Okay. And before you go, children, let me introduce you to this amazing app, which is the Imbibe app. What you have to do, you just have to log in. Just have to log in using your mobile number or your email, get an OTP, log into it. You land on the home page and there would be Imbibe live classes. Just register for yourself for the class. All the classes are lined up in the sequential manner, so that registering will help you attempt the pre and post class activity and will give you update regarding the classes. Every teacher has been assigned to take respective classes, so please do join us on the Imbibe app. It's like one-stop solution for everything. You can learn, you can practice, you can test, and you can even see what you have achieved. The next is the Imbibe Lens app. This is an amazing app, children. You just have to download the app, scan the text of the textbook. It will highlight all the keywords and will give you everything in the 3D. Okay. And the last, children, you can always please join us on the Imbibe app. Register yourself for the class, okay, so that you can attempt questions, you can understand everything in a better way, you can explore, you can practice, you can test yourself. We will meet with the another session tomorrow at the same time. Please register for yourself for the class. Until then, keep imbibing. Bye bye. Take care.
Keep imbibing. We believe in you.